Empire's pretty chill. Maybe you could, join it or something.
Excellent argument. Approved.
Hello everybody and welcome back to some more Total Warhammer 3. This time you will join me in a disastrous campaign playing as the Dark Elves. And when I say disastrous, I mean it. Well, I've got absolutely nothing to say, so with my game ready and my mods installed, let us begin. Oh, for fuck. The Dark Elves are a race of hyper-racist weebs that love getting kicked in the balls. And while I could stop there and be 100% inarguably correct, I feel like I should also tell you a little bit more about how they play in the actual game. And thus...
Today's subject is slavery.
Slaves are the core mechanic of the Dark Elves. They are captured post-battle or very slowly gained through port settlements, and they are the beating heart of your economy. As long as you have a sufficient amount of this ever-dwindling resource, your economy is going to be receiving massive buffs that make you just a powerhouse on the battlefield. However, having too many slaves will also lead to an increased chance of rebellions happening in all of your settlements, which is where our second mechanic comes in. By sacrificing a large number of slaves, you will be able to perform a sacrificial rite. These either just give you decent enough campaign bonuses for a few turns, or allow you to summon in one of the most insanely powerful units there is, the Black Ark. Not only is this gigantic warship basically a moving settlement in which you can build buildings and recruit units, it also acts as a super powerful artillery unit that, as long as it is somewhere near a battle that's taking place, it will be able to rain down fire upon your opponents. And finally, there is loyalty. If you mistreat one of your lords, that means either not giving them any new units for a long time, not having them capture any settlements for a long time, just letting them stand around doing nothing, or not giving them a large enough army and thus having them lose a battle, their loyalty rating will drop. It will also rise if you do the opposite of the things I just listed. Once the loyalty drops to 0, the Lord will just straight up take whatever army you'd given them and form a new faction instantly at war with yours. And so we drop into the campaign. I chose to play as Malekith first because we will be playing as multiple legendary lords in this video. And the reason I took Malekith is because way back then, years ago, when I bought myself Total Warhammer 2 without knowing anything about it, my first ever campaign was as Malekith, and all I remember doing is fighting the first battle and losing decisively. And while I am no doubt absolutely horrible at this game, I seem to have improved at least a little bit, because this time around I actually won decisively. I think it is important to bring up now before I forget it, but the Dark Elves are the first aggressive faction that I am playing. Thus, I not only suck at them twice as bad as I do with any other faction, but they also come with a combat mechanic. In combat, you have this big meter at the top of the screen. It fills up when you're slaying your enemies, and once it's full, all of your units receive a gigantic damage buff. Meaning, as the Dark Elves, once you're in, there's no going out. You need to relentlessly begin slaughtering the enemies as quickly as possible so that this meter fills up, and then you can do the same thing, just even better. You are an unstoppable force if you play them correctly, so you know I never got that meter full.
This nigga is trash.
As always, it took me a couple of attempts before I finally got a campaign going where things were actually going well. And once they were finally going well, the game instantly threw a wrench into my way. a comically big wrench, because the faction I literally just made a trade agreement with was within the same turn destroyed by the Cage Breakers. A orc faction that in literally every single game I play is always one of the most powerful factions on the map. But for the first time ever, it was time to change that. I surrounded them with my Black Ark and my main army and began to cut away at their huge number of settlements. However, not with much success. I don't know what it was, but whenever I fought the orcs in actual battle, I got completely annihilated. Maybe it's just a really bad mix-up because orcs are also an aggressive faction, but they actually have units that can survive more than a light breeze. But auto-resolve it was. At least for the most part. Some battles I lost ridiculously, like this one against a giant horde of orcs, that then was accompanied by an even larger horde of orcs.
Houston, we have a problem.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
But some I actually won, like the siege battle, because the Dark Elves are good at dishing out a lot of damage rather quickly, meaning I was able to scale their walls, pound them with spells, and claim victory for myself in this case. Allow me to tell you now how this playthrough is going to go, because the rules are a bit different today. For one, the difficulty has increased to the absolute max to which I will ever put it. We are now at normal campaign and battle difficulty with normal enemy strength, no modifiers whatsoever. I have also changed my victory conditions quite a bit, because for the Dark Elves, all of them suck. They all involve going to the other end of the world and taking over some dumb settlement there. Which is why instead of winning a campaign, I just wanted to have fun.
Move this man!
In the grey and desolate lands of Nagaroth, cruelty rules above all. And that is reflected in the Dark Elves roster. Because they are elves, they of course have access to insanely powerful magic that may or may not include summoning a mini sun above the battlefield. But unlike other elf lords, Dark Elf lords are also very skilled and powerful in hand-to-hand combat. Just like with all elf factions, their infantry is rather weak on the HP side. However, for the Dark Elves that is no problem, because they are swift and deadly. And at first I really didn't like them, but when I got my hands on the Witch Elves, everything changed, because these girls are manic. Once they get through the enemy's front line, they will just begin slaughtering everything. Basically, once the enemy's guard is broken, there is no going back for them. But if their guard holds up, it's gonna be a tough one. You will also struggle in dealing with enemy range, because, like the true weeb that they are, Dark Elves do nothing that keeps their body nice and clean. Thus they refuse to use a shield because they want all of that blood hitting them directly. You have very few shielded infantry options and you will suffer from it greatly. Just like with Cafe, their ranged roster is very small but very powerful. However, unlike with Cafe where they had one unit for basically everything, The Dark Elves range units all play kind of the exact same, having incredibly high damage, but all only being viable at medium range. You have no close range and no long range units. The cavalry is fine, nothing to write home about aside from the fact that they have lots of missile cavalry, as well as velociraptors for some reason. For your artillery, you've got a very good early game option, but beyond that, not that much. You do have monstrous artillery, which is very cool in form of these Gorgons, but they cannot hit shit. These people legit have Stormtrooper aim. I don't think I have, in my entire campaign, ever had this thing hit a single unit.
What are you aiming at? What are you aiming at?
They also have these cool wagons that just run people over, so that's fun. And finally, as Beastmasters, the Dark Elves have access to a gigantic roster of monsters. Anything from the quick and flying harpies, to the giant aquatic pago worms and sea dragons, to regular dragons, to of course their iconic hydras. The Dark Elves have a huge and well-rounded roster that, while it does drop off a bit towards the end game, they are still a very good faction. And thus, it should be rather easy to win with them. Right, the War of the Cage Breakers was nearing its end and we were coming out as the victor. Exclusively because of auto-resolve, I must admit. However, we were slowly but surely taking over all of Necrond and things were looking good. However, there were still, of course, a few problems. The Broken Chains, another orc faction, really wanted to have war with my Skaven brethren, so I had to kind of help out there, but not really because I never went there and I don't know what happened, so All that I knew is that my goal for this campaign would be to take over all of Necrond, so the entire top left corner of the map, and to do so there were just a few more Dark Elf factions in the way. Thus, of course, it was time to declare war on them. Because without war, there's no slaves, and without slaves, there's no economy. Holy shit, am I playing as the American?
Some things are worth fighting for.
Don't know. Take my power.
What do you mean by that?
The war was rather one-sided for me. However, at one point their main army did manage to assault my Black Ark, and the other result was saying close victory, and I wasn't gonna let that happen. As you know, I always go above and beyond. I always aim for the best, and anything that's not the best is not getting accepted. So it's time to turn that close victory into a crushing defeat. And with that, the final battle of this campaign is upon us. We are now attacking the last two settlements belonging to this enemy Dark Elf faction, and once they are wiped out, I will officially own a large enough part of the map to where I'd say I've basically won. In a turn of events that I could never have expected, I was not going to be sieging this settlement alone. All the way from Ulthuan, two High Elf armies suddenly showed up, and I kid you not, teamed up with me to take down this maybe above average garrison. So now there's only two things I can say. For one, the music of the Dark Elves is absolute peak. Two, enjoy. I ended up quitting Malekith's campaign because I had, as I said, basically won. All I needed to do was take over like 20 more settlements that could be any random settlement, and only one of them needed to be a specific one. So in the end, I could have just kept going, taking over all the little useless stuff up there in the corner, and I would have won. And that just wasn't fun at all. Thus, I switched to Malus Darkblade, who was even less fun. Yeah, I'm just great. I know. His campaign sees one of his possible victory paths take over one specific settlement, who could have guessed, and then just randomly take out a bunch of dogshit factions who are at the other end of the map. Yeah, that's just wonderful. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that? So yeah, needless to say, I didn't win this one. Not only that, I also failed this one. This is the first campaign I ever failed because I went bankrupt towards the end. And the reason for that is you start here on the map. I don't know how to describe this. But you also have a single settlement in Nagaron for like the first few turns until Malekith tries to buy it from you. Now then, I didn't know that I had that settlement. So when Malekith told me I want to buy your capital, I thought my capital was the place where I started at. Like it is with literally every other faction in the game. But no, my capital is in fuck knows nowhere at the other side of the map. So I said no when I should have said yes, and all that led to is not only did every single faction near my actual capital declare war on me, every single faction near my supposed capital in Nagaron also declared war on me. Meaning I was able to have absolutely no allies because everyone at the top of the map was at war with me. Yeah. Malus does have a very cool mechanic called possession, and I don't understand it at all. So basically you're possessed by the demon Zarkan, who will occasionally whisper to you, which is a cool detail, I must admit. And you can choose to either succumb to him or to resist him. Resisting him costs elixirs that at first cost an ever-increasing amount of money and later in the campaign are free but just take a few turns to recharge from what I understand. Resisting Zarkan will yield some campaign buffs while also yielding a few minor combat debuffs. Meanwhile, succumbing to Zarkan will yield insane combat buffs, but also make Malus himself slowly but surely die and your replenishment rate go like -50 or something. Now, the reason I say I don't understand this mechanic is because I see absolutely no reason to cure yourself ever. Not only are the combat buffs that much more better than the actual campaign buffs, the elixirs just cost a lot of money you don't have, and you will be randomly given quests by Zarkan that yield such insane rewards that there is no reason to not do them. I just didn't get this, and perhaps that contributed to my downfall, but it is what it is. The campaign was a dud in the end, and so we move on to the finale. Since I actually needed to win these battles for once, I decided to make them a bit harder by also including some spinny wheels. The first wheel would decide what kind of battle I would fight. Am I being sieged? Am I sieging them? Or are we just fighting out in the field? The second wheel would decide how their army would be created. Is it a random challenge that I fought up for the race? Will I allow the AI to randomize the army but just remove all regiments of renown units? Or will I create my army first, let the enemy randomize his and then bump his down until our money matches? The final wheel will just decide what map the siege would happen on if it did land on siege battles. But here's a problem. I don't know what's wrong with this game, but this game just fucking hates me. So, according to the game, this army is somehow a lot more expensive than this army. And I was like, that can't be right. How the hell will the Dark Elves ever win if their army is this expensive? So I typed in every single unit's value, one by one, into a calculator for both factions. And look at this. My army is in fact cheaper than theirs. I don't know why this game is just gaslighting me into thinking that I'm irresponsible with money. Oh, I get it. Oh. But I don't own those figurines. Fuck. That's why I kept losing. I didn't log into the Weeb spirit.
There we go. The obvious answer that I have known. You've proven me right. So, you're gonna longingly gaze at me.
But now, without any further ado, let us jump straight into the battles. The first one was probably my favorite one out of all of these. It was against Bretonia, with the simple but interesting challenge of a siege coming from them, but they can only use their horse units. It was interesting because while they do have flying units that can cross over the walls, horses are neither good at barging down the gates or climbing walls for obvious reasons. That meant that they effectively had no real way to get beyond my walls, but once they were past, they would be able to completely outrun all my units and just take over all the capture points. The first battle was of course a complete loss because I had a completely understocked army. But my strategy would remain the same. I'd have a lot of shades on the walls for crossbow fire, and for those that really wanted to get inside, I was even nice enough to put in some guests to greet them. While I had lost the first time, once I had an actual good army, I could win that battle easily. And next up was Kislev yet again sieging me. This battle I was expecting to be really hard, which is why I spent like half an hour setting up my units perfectly. But that ended up being all for nothing because I don't know if it was just their dumb AI or if it was that I had actually set up my units super well. But they barely even made it past the walls with all their units, and I mean, okay, maybe it is the fact that I have a Doom Angel that can summon volcanoes out the ground, but still, I won, that's all that matters. And exactly as expected, fighting the Wood Elves made me hate everything, which is the exact reason why I did not force myself to beat them. These guys just suck to fight. They hide at the other end of the map like cowards, just rain down arrows upon you forever. No matter really what I tried, they would always just manage to pick me off. I got really close one time, using all my magic to take out their big treemen that they like to spam, fighting them tooth and nail and using my melee superiority to the fullest, but they just have so many insanely powerful ranged units that in the end, no matter what I could even try, they would always just barely come out on top. But now it's time for the great finale, and in it we find out that these Weebs actually have what it takes to climb the Great Wall. But I believe in them, for I lead them. I have my trust in them, and I have my trust in your victory. All I can say to those Cathayan warriors waiting for their demise on the other side.
Don't fuck with me! I have the power of God and anime on my side! Wait,
there you have it. Those were the Dark Elves. There'll be a little bit of a break now for me from Total War Warhammer. How that's gonna translate to the actual videos, I don't know. Anyways, thank you for watching. Have a great day.